Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It is live from our studio here at Adesanwe Kanda in Accra and also live around the world on 3news.com. Coming up this evening, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission in crucial talks with CLOGSAG leadership as nationwide strike begins over delayed conditions of service. We'll give you details of that meeting in a moment. Also coming up, rice farmers accuse government appointees of failing to enforce local rice purchase directive by the Buffer Stock Company Limited and denies claims that tonight we examine why large quantities remain unpurchased despite a directive by President John Mahama. And another big story we are looking at for you has to do with a pastor who has been arrested over child sexual abuse materials as authorities probe the rising online exploitation. Details in a moment. We are live on 3news.com. We are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. Your messages are always welcome. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's bring you the news summaries before we delve into the details with Christabel. Hello, Christabel.
Hi, Martin. Thank you very much. In a summaries this evening, the Minister for Education has announced that the government of Ghana is considering a special provision to allow approximately 30,000 senior high school graduates to resit the WASSCE mathematics paper. This initiative aims to help those who fail the subject to meet the requirements for tertiary education admission. CLOGSAG has officially commenced an indefinite strike today. This industrial action is a protest against continued delays in the implementation of their agreed upon conditions of service. And this is one we're keeping an eye closely on. So keep your dial here on 3FM 92.7. Onto the health front, new health reports indicate that Ghana has recorded over 1,000 Mpox cases within the last 11 months. Health officials are calling for increased vigilance and have highlighted a simultaneous surge in other health concerns, including a warning from the Atibubu Amating MCE regarding rising HIV rates in certain districts. Ghana Link Network Services Limited has issued a formal dismissal of claims suggesting that the Integrated Customs Management Systems is responsible for recent fuel supply disruptions. The company has demanded an apology from Star Oil, maintaining that the system is not the cause of the reported shortages by oil marketing companies. International Middle East crisis impacts fuel stability. Now, the ongoing crisis in the Middle East continues to pose a threat to Ghana's fuel price stability. The National Petroleum Authority, NPA, and political stakeholders are currently monitoring the situation as global oil pressures and regional tensions are expected to influence the next fuel pricing window. Also, this is one we're keeping a close eye on, and keep your dial here on 3FM 92.7. I am Christabel Success Trevor. Martin, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let's settle for the details of our stories now. We are starting from the labor front, where government representatives led by the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission are currently locked up in a meeting with the leadership of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, in an attempt to resolve the ongoing strike by the association. Members of CLOGSAG today began an indefinite nationwide strike to protest what they describe as persistent delays in the implementation of their agreed conditions of service. The industrial action comes despite a directive from the National Labour Commission ordering the association to suspend the strike and return to the negotiation table. In a letter dated March 5, 2026, the association insisted its concerns remain unresolved even after it served notice of the intended strike on February 19. Executive Secretary of CLOGSAG, Isaac Bampo Ado, says the strike became necessary after several attempts to get government to implement the agreement failed.
The National Executive Council, NEC, of the Civil and Local Government Staff Association, Ghana, CLOGSAG, met to consider the state of the negotiation on unique salary structure and other conditions of service for the staff of the civil service and the local government service. Taking the NEC through the journey of the unique salary structure and other conditions of service for the staff of the Civil Service and the Local Government Service, which started as far back as 2019. Culminating in the signing of 2 separate MOUs, the NEC observed that the staff of the services are being taken for granted as reminders to the Ministry of Labour, Jobs and Employment, and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission have not been responded to. Government has been mute over their own promises to implement the unique salary structure and other conditions of service with effect from 1st January 2023. In the light of the above, NEC decided to declare an industrial action to back the demand for better conditions of service for its members. NEC decided further that should the government fail to honor its side of the bargain, the constituents of CLOSAC will embark on a nationwide strike with effect from 9th March 2026.
And that strike actually is in force, and so that is why a meeting is currently ongoing to at least ensure that the striking labor union or labor groups return to work while their leadership continue the negotiations with government. Now, across the country today, the impact of the industrial action is already being felt, with many public offices left empty as workers withdraw their services, leaving members of the public stranded. Our reporter Ibrahim Abubakar visited some affected public institutions in
the Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOSAG, has begun to disrupt public administration services in Kumasi as workers withdraw their services over concerns about delayed conditions of service. The nationwide industrial action has forced many government institutions to suspend operations, leaving clients to bear the brunt of the situation. At the Births and Death Registry Regional Office, the busy premises were unusually quiet, with empty chairs replacing the typical crowds. Staff have vacated their post in compliance with the strike directive issued by CLOSAG. Several individuals who had visited the office to access services were left stranded and had to return home without being attended to.
Your birthday certificate, but they are on strike, as you said. I didn't see anyone here, so I don't know whether they will come or they will not come. You see, as a worker, we need government to help them so that they can also come and help us.
The situation is not different here at the Controller and Accountant General's Department, where offices remain closed as staff have stayed away from their desk in line with the directive. Across many district and municipal assemblies, routine administrative duties such as processing official documents, coordinating government programs, and providing essential public services have been temporarily suspended due to the absence of staff. The strike follows what the association describes as prolonged delays by government authorities in implementing an agreed salary structure and improved conditions of service for civil and local government workers. Despite a directive by the National Labour Commission asking the association to suspend the strike and return to the negotiation table, CLOSAG leadership has instructed members nationwide to stay away from work until their concerns are addressed. Meanwhile, labor authorities and government officials are expected to engage the union in negotiations aimed at resolving the impasse and restoring normal operations in the public services later today. Ibrahim Abubakar, TV3 News, Kumasi.
And that report came in from the Ashanti region. So it looks as though the situation has begun to bite and the impact has been felt. Let's now also speak to our labor correspondent, who is Daniel Opoku. He's joined us on the line. He's at the premises where this meeting is currently being held between the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and CLOSAG leadership. Daniel, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening to you, Martin. Good evening.
Right. Can you, at least, first of all, just give us an idea of who are the people in attendance to this meeting and what has happened since the meeting began?
Right. So the meeting was initially scheduled to start at 2 p.m., but they had to change the time to 4 p.m. So currently they are still in the meeting. A short while ago, I saw Isaac Bampoado, who is Executive Secretary of Clockstack, walked into the meeting. And also I saw other national executive and national leaders who are currently in the meeting, and also being joined by the Chief Executive Officer of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, currently in a meeting trying to be able to convince Clockstack for them to call up the strike. So it just started about 5 to 10 minutes ago. We are patiently waiting outside to see what will happen. Then right after that, we'll speak to them and know exactly what will transpire, and also whether government is committed to be able to resolve the problem and get their monies or their demands addressed.
So for those who may not be following, help us understand. This is the umpteenth time that Clockstack is threatening and actually embarking on a strike. What is the reason behind this particular strike?
Right. So, Martin, the leadership of Clockstack are basically demanding two major things. The first one has to do with salary structure, a new salary structure for themselves, and also as in the membership, and also the conditions of service that they want government to be able to finalize and get that concluded. Now, in 2019, they were able to engage the then minister, the senior minister, Yao Osafo, together with the Dairy Farmers and Salaries Commission Chief Executive, Ben Arthur, where they were able to reach an amicable solution. They drafted a memorandum of understanding with regard to how the new salary structure will be implemented vis-a-vis the existing salary structure, that is the single spine pay policy. So they agreed on that, but unfortunately, government then could not get the thing implemented. When the government exited office, the NDC government that took over, they decided to table their concerns before the Minister of Labour, Jobs and Employment, who also agreed to forwarded the document to Minister of Finance to ensure that the chain and also their concerns are addressed. But for the whole of 2025, Clockstack says that government failed to get the thing implemented. That is the reason they are on strike as I speak to you currently. And what they are telling us is that what will only make them to rescind their decision is for government to show commitment, either roll out the payment schedule or be ready to indicate when the payments will be done and also how the payments are going to be done before they will be able to call up their strike.
And on the issue of the strike, so it means that the meeting is currently ongoing. We do not know when it will end. But talk to us about the body language of Clockstack leaders in the meeting and the government representatives. Does it look like we are likely to have some conclusion or some agreement before the meeting ends today?
Right. So much we are basically expecting government to be able to convince the leadership of Clockstack. Because when you look at their pushing, for instance, coming from the side of Clockstack, I realize that they are upset. They are really, really upset with regard to how government has to be late. And even when they issued the first statement on the 19th of February, telling government to sit with them and get the issues resolved, government was somehow not forthcoming. And somewhere last week, Thursday, they engaged the Minister of Labour, and Labour also was not unable to resolve their problem. Now they have been called into a meeting by the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to be able to get their concerns addressed. So the portion of Clockstack actually is not the best. It's not the best. They are extremely upset. But from government, you realize that the Chief Executive is committed to get the issues resolved, and it's supposed to get the thing resolved by close of day today. So the strike does not enter into the second and the third day, and that is going to be dire for the entire public of the entire civil service. Because the civil servants, they are the implementers of government business. So if they are on strike, then obviously government business is going to be affected, and government must step in to get the issues addressed as I speak to you now.
Absolutely. And that will be my last question, which you have touched on briefly, which is that which particular sectors fall under Clockstack and what kind of impact is likely to happen if the strike lingers?
Right. So we have the local government services. The local government services, i.e. those who work in the municipal and district assemblies, they are members of Clockstack, and also those who work within the ministry. So talk about employment ministry. We also talk about the finance ministry and other ministries within the service. Then interestingly, you have another block. There's a local government workers union who are affiliate members of the TUC. They have also joined the strike. As I speak to you now, the General Secretary is also part of the meeting together with the leadership of Clockstack to ensure the government is able to conclude the conditions of service and the new salary structure for them. But when you go to, for instance, the Registrar General's Department, initially it was just one single entity. But now it has been decoupled where you have the Registrar General's Department, then also have the Office of the Registrar of Companies. Now, the Office of the Registrar of Companies, their members are not CLOCSAC members. So when you go to their offices currently, or since morning, they have been working since morning. But the Office of the Registrar General, for them, you have members of CLOCSAC who are on strike. The strike has been biting. It has been hitting because when we speak to the leadership, they said that they realized that this time around the members really would want some kind of adjustment to what they take home every month. So this time around, they are not going to back down until they hear something concrete from government.
Right. Thank you very much, Daniel Opoku, for that report. He's our labor correspondent, updating us on an ongoing meeting between between CLOCSAG and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission in an attempt to resolve and ensure that CLOCSAG's strike does not continue to bite. It started today. The impact, we are told, especially a report we just got from the Ashanti region, indicates that it has already started having a dire effect on people who are going out to seek some services. We are just hopeful that the issue is resolved by close of day before the impact is felt nationwide. But we would update you as and when this meeting comes to an end. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. And we are shifting our attention to one of our headline stories for you, having to do with the National Food Buffer Stock Company. Now, they have debunked claims by rice producers that government appointees are failing to enforce a directive requiring public institutions to purchase locally produced rice. The company insists it has consistently bought rice from local farmers and says challenges in the sector are largely due to production levels exceeding its current purchasing capacity. Judith Brown has been monitoring this particular issue and has come through with this report.
The majority of our members are still holding on with rice they produce in 2025 and 2024 on their farms. They could not even bring them to the nearest warehouses. We keep asking the question, the 200 million that was promised and released by the Ministry of Finance, where have they bought the produce from? It is clear that they continue to buy from importers or continue to import them.
That was a spokesperson for rice producers and processors in Ghana, Dr. Charles Nyaba, alleging that appointees of President John Dramani Mahama have failed to enforce the directive requiring institutions to purchase locally produced rice. In recent times, the president has expressed concern over reports that several schools continue to purchase imported rice despite an earlier government policy encouraging students to source food items locally. However, the head of corporate affairs at the National Food Buffer Stock Company, the primary agency responsible for implementing the policy, Emmanuel Arthur, has dismissed these claims. He says the company has consistently purchased rice from local farmers since 2017.
It is not true that we are not buying Ghana rice or locally produced rice. Since 2017, since the free SHS started, we have always patronized locally grown rice. Apart from buying local rice to feed the school children, we also started a special program called the National Food Slave. So, and that program was a government response to the food glut.
Responding to allegations that large quantities of rice remain unharvested on farms, he explained that the situation is largely due to farmers producing more rice than the company is currently able to purchase.
We have earlier indicated to government that we will need a lot more funds because we are buying and the farmers keep producing. It looks like what is actually happening is that the farmers have more than we are purchasing. And so we will need a lot more funds to be able to mop up so much from them. When that is done, I'm sure there will be some relief to the farmers.
Emmanuel Arthur also addressed concerns about the relatively low prices farmers receive for their rice.
The buffer stock is like the last resort. For a farmer, government encourages that when your produce is ready, sell it to anybody or anywhere you want to sell and get at any price that you want. But if you don't get anybody, instead of the product going list, that's when buffer stock comes in as the last resort. So our price most often is the lowest.
For now, the company says it is working with the government to increase the funds allocated for the purchase of locally produced rice.
And you heard that report put together by Judith Brown. Let's now have a conversation about this issue of whether or not the buffer stock is able to purchase locally produced rice. Now that the farmers are also saying that the order of the president is being disrespected and that they have heard little to nothing from the state institutions that have been asked to purchase their rice. Joining us in studio now is the Executive Director of the Chamber of Agribusiness, Anthony Morrison. Mr. Morrison, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, my brother. I'm the CEO.
CEO, yeah. Chief Executive Officer of Chamber of Agribusiness. I know personally that you are also a rice farmer, but talk to us first of all about the rice conversation. Have you had any state institutions? I know you have an association. Have government institutions contacted you to start purchasing rice as directed by the president?
Well, if I sit here to say that we haven't had contact, I wouldn't be doing justice to the situation. Let me first of all applaud the Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs. The Chamber, with our partners, Farmasters, donated about 2,500 bags of rice, which was used for the donation for Cuba, Jamaica, and Sudan. That aside, we have also had purchases from the Office of the President and also the Office of the First Lady. So I think that to some extent, even though in terms of the institutional capacities, these are not forthcoming, but leadership is showing some examples. But that notwithstanding, let me give you, Martin, the genesis of the situation that you come to appreciate the situation that we find ourselves. Ghana consumes about 1.9 million metric tons of rice, and we produces about 1 million metric tons, sometimes 1.2, leaving around 800,000 metric tons. Now, in 2023, if you can quite remember, there was a long drought across the country. So farmers were not able to do the minor season. But the major season, a lot of farmers did well. However, at the time, the government then failed to go to the field to update itself on how much of grains and cereals farmers were able to recoup or coop or were able to store as a result of the drought. Now, we got funding from the World Bank, which was around $135 million. And also, you remember in 2024, Parliament also approved some money for through the Parliamentary Select Committee on Agriculture, Cocoa, and Food Affairs. And that was over 200 to 500 billion, depending on the time. Now, fast forward to 2024, government then imported heavily maize and rice without taking stock of available paddies that were in the system. Now, rice paddies are very sensitive. They are such that if they are not dried well and kept well, when you mill, you will not get the right standard that the market wants. So when you go to buy rice paddies and you bought the paddies based on your specifications, your testing and everything, and you bring it to the rice mill, and you mill and you get about 30% or 40% broken rice. That means that there is a big loss at your end as a miller, and you can't recoup that on the market. Now, as if that wasn't enough, we have seen huge production from our global competitors. The Thailand, the Vietnam, the India are all producing hugely. And so a lot of this rice came into the market. In addition to our own failure of regulatory activities, where the regulation says that no rice should come through the landed borders, but they were coming through the landed borders. So there were a lot of rice in the system. And the millers who have pre-financed the farmers, the input dealers who have pre-financed the farmers are unable to get their money back because the farmer still have the paddy with him or her. So you go and see your paddy and still requesting for the farmer to pay. So it became a major issue. Now, the most annoying thing in all this was that last year, we imported 1.7 metric tons of rice.
That is almost the entirety of how much we consume as a nation.
Exactly. As against the already existing stock of 2023, 2024, and what was done in 2025. So if the buffer stock man says that we have more Ghana rice in the system than they can procure, that is true. 2, Ghana rice are meant for Ghana people. We produce our own rice with the taxpayers' money, with our own money, and it is right that Ghanaians must consume it.
Okay.
Now, where we have found ourselves is how the dispensation and the implementation of the procurement are going. Ideally, the best process to do this is to identify 4 or 5 or 7 millers and tax them to uptake paddies from the farmers based on their quality. Based on that, the mill and the buffer stock is there to authenticate what they are milling.
Right.
Now, they give contracts to middlemen, people who have no clue about how the rice sector works. Now, our understanding is that an average of about 600 to 700 cedis is being provided for a 50 kg of milled rice. However, if I tell you how much these middlemen are buying rice from the poor farmers, you will cry. They are buying rice between 300 and 400 cedis.
And the final uptake they sell for about 500
to the government.
700. Wow.
And look at the margin. Okay, why don't you pass all this margin to the farmers who have made huge losses? The additional thing is that as a country, times like this calls for innovation. This paddy rice, look, my brother, we eat banku all the time, which is a mixture of corn dough and cassava dough. The price of cassava dough keeps going up. The price of maize keeps going up. Even though, rightly as we speak, we are the rice sector, the maize sector is also having similar challenge as the rice sector. Prices of maize for 50 kg of maize have plummeted from 600 to 185 cedis as we speak.
Wow.
Because of the huge importation that came in. If you quite remember, after the elections, His Excellency the President directed that all these rice and maize that were seized should be donated to what? The schools.
Yes.
Where did they come from? Where did all this rice come from? The maize, where did they come from? They were imported.
Someone imported them.
Now, what we should be doing as a way of a national innovative thinking is that, rightly said, the quality of paddy rice have depreciated. So what we should have done was that instead of at buffer stock, giving it to those who have been taxed to procure the rice for the buffer stock, instead of 100% long grain, do it 60% long grain.
Okay.
So we can have 40% to mitigate the losses at the farmer end. Now, another innovative thinking is that we can also direct it that you can do maybe 70% of the total number you've been given, which is rice, and do 30% powdered rice.
Okay.
So that at the secondary school level, with gari porridge and rice powder, you have banku ready instantly. But we are not being innovative.
So some
we
of
are
these
not thinking outside the box.
Innovations.
No, the reason is that the reason why this is not coming is that the likes of the chamber, peasant farmers, we are not involved in the implementation of this system that they have rolled out. A system where private sector person who have no role in the milling process, he doesn't supply input, he doesn't do logistics, he's not a farmer, now coming in to aggregate from you, telling you how much he will pay you. And because you are stressed and you are so distressed and the inputs dealers are after you, the millers are after you because they have pre-financed you have to sell.
Okay, let's help us unpack some of these issues you have raised. One, we want to look at the directive by the president that they want Ghanaians to consume locally produced rice, but more importantly, he wants state institutions to purchase it. And you say that partly some specific people or institutions came to you, they got some rice, but those that are directly targeted at, for instance, the secondary schools, like the buffer stock, have not done so, and they are more or less...
exchange.
Yeah, the commodity exchange, for instance, they are. So that is a direct flouting of the president's directive. That's a given, yes?
What we want to appeal to the president is for us to do a national audit of which rice have been supplied to specific schools.
Right.
We are rice experts. When we see an imported rice, we know.
Okay.
We know how every mill in this country and the type of rice they are able to mill. You see, if what I've narrated has taken place, you will know that you will be able to build the geographical indications and traceability in a manner that addresses rice are being imported into this country and move to the north and move to Afram Plains. Meanwhile, there are rice mill in Eastern region.
Just like Kuse and the rest. Okay, 2 final questions, then we wrap this conversation up. Can Ghanaian rice farmers produce enough to meet demand? You say we consume about 1.9 million metric tons of rice annually. Can we produce to that level and reduce import? If today government says they are going to reduce or ban the importation of rice, do we have the capacity to meet local demand?
Government should not say it's a must. They must ban rice importation. We have over 2 million Ghanaians directly involved in farming in terms of rice.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a must that rice importation must be banned. We have even suggested to the ministry and the key stakeholders that we should go by quota system. When at the start of the year, the minister or the president declares this amount of rice is what we will import this year.
Okay.
When that happens, there is direct investment and direct intervention from the private sector, so we can produce rice to feed Ghanaians. In fact, we can produce the most nourished and the most nutritious rice. I'm not talking about all the junks that are being imported into this country.
I mean, personally, I can vouch for the fact that local rice has
I'll give you rice and you try it. And you tell listeners.
Improved, yes. And so my final question then is, so what next? Now that there is this level of interest from government or commitment from government to assist local farmers, but there are some challenges, in the value chain. How do you suggest, and briefly, so how do you suggest that we nip this suggestion or we quickly find solution to this problem?
Martin, we the farmers, God is always our helper. And God helps us with rain. God helps us with sun. Even though what is happening in Iran is a force majeure, but we pray to God. Now, those rice cannot come in the country.
Okay.
The borders where we get, and you see, it's a blessing in disguise because rice cannot come in. At the same time, some of the key inputs we use in the agriculture sector can also come in. Ghanaians must brace themselves to eat 70% broken rice.
Okay.
Ghanaians must brace themselves to think outside the box. Instead of eating corn dough, cassava dough, banku or akpele, now get the gari and do porridge. Those of you who don't know, we can teach you live in the studio. Do the gari porridge and add the powdered rice, and you have your banku.
Okay.
Okay, the shelf life of that is even higher than the original banku that we know.
Okay.
So the fact here is that Ghanaians must brace themselves. We have enough rice. We are ready to feed them. There must be demand. Let's have structured market for our rice, and let's have structured protection system for our rice farmers, and with the rest will be delivered.
Thank you so much, Anthony Morrison, for your time this evening. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber for Agribusiness, and clearly the conversation about rice consumption in the country, the rice production, and the directive of the President for, state institutions and agencies to purchase locally produced rice has come as a major conversation. So we are hopeful that this issue a solution is found in the interim that is long-lasting and can help not just the consumers but the Ghanaian farmer as well. Do you consume local rice? You should, because like we have just heard, it is even more nutritious than 90% of those that are imported into the country. This is 3FM 92.7. Let's take a step back to our earlier story having to do with CLOGSAG's decision to go on strike. As we speak, they are locked up in a meeting with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, trying to find some solution to the strike. Let's speak to labor expert, Mr. Austin Gama, who has joined us. Mr. Gama, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, my brother.
To start with, how significant is it for for CLOGSAG to proceed on strike? They say, and again, many are even confused the reason for this particular strike. They've threatened a number of times. Some they have embarked on, others they have not. But they keep saying conditions of service, and that's another reason why they have gone on this particular strike. Conditions of service. What's your understanding of why they have gone on this particular strike?
Honestly, this is one of the strikes they should not have embarked upon at all, because they have high-level leaders among themselves that could go and sit with the employer and slug it out. Unfortunately, they appear to be tired, and so they are resorting to strike action, which is more biting, for everybody, including themselves, than they think it will do them good. So I think it cannot be described as something really important or significant for that matter. They will have to rethink and find a way of addressing the challenges they have, which is coming from at the back of 2019, 7 years unimplemented. If it were something, because we haven't seen the details, we don't know what kind of condition of service was agreed to between them and the part employer. And here we are, the new employer says, wait for me a while, and I think that they are embarking upon strike at this point in time is most regrettable. They have to go back to work and let them engage the employer, just as I heard in your intro, that Fair Wages is locked up with them, discussing the issues. I think that's the way to go.
And my last question to you, Mr. Gama, would be what options are available to government, to at least convince CLOGSAG to return to work? We know they are in a meeting. If you were consulted, and I know you've been consulted a number of times, if you were there, what would the advice to government be in how they approach this strike?
Well, this one, because of the commitment on the part of the employer, government, that, look, I want to set up an emolument commission to address the cancer of poor salary administration in this country, which is being done disjointedly, standing on an old structure. If we are to embark upon that, then it requires patience on the part of everybody, except that the employer must commit to timelines for which everybody will be patiently, including CLOGSAG members who have waited for 7 years without
the implementation of an agreed to, as they said, agreement with the past employer. I think they should be patient. That my advice to government is that they should all go and give the timelines to an independent body, the National Labour Commission, so that they can be held to it. That's just about it. But to agree to something before setting up the Emolument Commission will be injurious to the health of our financial situation in the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Game, for your time as always. And Austin Game is a labor expert and consultant, adding his voice to the conversation about the meeting between CLOGSAG and government, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, over a strike which is currently in force. Started today, is likely to continue until some resolution is agreed upon by the members of the meeting between government and CLOGSAG. So our reporters are there. Will definitely update you, hopefully by close of day, to see how the first day of the meeting ended. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. We are going on to one of our headline stories for you, which is also quite shocking, and you might want to pay attention to this. So the Ghana Police Service, in collaboration with the Cybersecurity Authority and the National Security, have arrested a suspect pastor for defilement, production and possession of child sexual abuse materials. Ebenezer Kondia, 45, was arrested in the early hours of the 6th of March at Waraba in the Central Region. The suspect is reported to have subjected the survivor to sexual abuse over an extended period. The recorded videos of the abuse on his mobile phone, and in some instances, he fought the survivor to hold up materials displaying an adult's pornographic website and to state on camera that she was accessible on that platform with apparent intent to distribute such content online. The abuse came to light when the survivor confided in the school headmistress and complained, and the complaint was filed with the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit DOVSU in Cape Coast. Some of the items found in the suspect's house included 1 HD laptop, 3 external hard drives, 5 pen drives, mobile phones, 2 electronic vibrators with accessories, assorted contraceptives, used and unused lubricants, a used pregnancy test kit, and 2 ladies' panties. Let's listen to the CID boss, COP Lydia Donko, who addressed the media and gave some of these very interesting details.
The arrest took place in the early hours of March 6, 2026 in Cape Coast Central Region during a joint intelligence-led operation. The suspect, Ebenezer Kondia, aged 45, is the lead pastor at Mahanaim Christian Center in Ankafo, Cape Coast. He was apprehended in Waraba, a suburb of Eguasi in Cape Coast. The suspect is also known to operate a Facebook profile under the name Reverend Dr. Kondia, where he portrays himself as a trained gynecologist and international marriage counselor. Investigations reveal that in August 2021, the suspect welcomed the survivor, then a 13-year-old junior high school student, into his home under the guise of providing spiritual counseling and behavioral correction. From that point, the suspect repeatedly subjected the survivor to sexual abuse over an extended period. He also recorded videos of the abuse on his mobile phone. In some instances, he forced the survivor to hold up materials displaying an adult's pornographic website and to state on camera that she was accessible on that platform with apparent intent to distribute such content online. The abuse came to light when the survivor confided in her school headmistress. A complaint was filed with the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit DOVSU in Cape Coast, and the case was formally referred to the Circuit Court in Cape Coast.
And that is COP Lydia Donko, who is the head of the CID, the Criminal Investigations Department. The interesting thing that the internet, we are also getting while a gateway to knowledge, is also becoming a dangerous playground. In 2024, we saw 23,626 cyber tip line reports linked to child abuse or child sexual abuse materials assessed or shared from Ghana, a shocking leap from just 750 in 2016. Let's speak to Madam Hilda Mensah, who is a lawyer, a child protection specialist responsible for Justice for Children and Birth Registration, UNICEF Ghana. Madam, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening, and I'm happy to join you on this conversation as well.
Right. What would your initial reactions be to this development? Are you surprised? You're someone who's been working in this space for some time. Are you surprised about this revelation about a man, who has been undertaking this, we are told, for at least the last 4 years, abusing children, and worst of all, posting his encounters or what the sexual activities online?
All right. To begin with, I don't think I'm particularly surprised, because your last statement talked about the NECNIC tip line report, which indicates clearly the extent of child sexual abuse materials that emanate from Ghana, are produced from Ghana, or are redistributed in Ghana. So that already gives you a very worrying trend. But what comes to mind again is that the accused person in this case, or the apprehended person in this case, is a pastor. And pastors are held to exceptionally very high moral standards and ethical standards within our communities. And they are often expected to embody, spiritual integrity, serve as a role model, and provide a safe haven for their congregants. So when pastors are alleged to have perpetrated such crimes, particularly sexual misconduct, it results in intense public scrutiny and moral outrage. And then it's a profound sense of betrayal to all Ghanaians. And let me quickly add that I'm also not surprised, because you see, perpetrators often are persons who are known to the victims. And I'm sure that this victim has been familiar with this pastor over this long period. I'm not surprised at that. But it's a revelation of the worrying trend, and the increasing worrying trend, and more worrying, the spaces within which children ought to feel safe have become a point of betrayal. That is very worrying.
And I mean, from what we are hearing, this particular child was courageous enough to report it to a teacher in school, the headmistress, and then they also helped take it or escalate it to the police officers, leading to the arrest of this man in question. But are there systems in place, to help remove, while we do the domestic work of child psychology, etc., are there systems about to help remove some of these content, especially to safeguard the future of these children?
Yes, there are systems in place. If you listen to Madam Commissioner Lydia, the CID boss, she indicated that this was a joint operation between the Cybersecurity Authority and the Ghana Police Service. And so these two institutions have systems in place to remove such unhealthy content. But the starting point also is the point of reporting. I'm particularly happy that the victim mustered the courage to go to the headmistress. It means that this victim trusts the headmistress. And that's what children should do. In instances such as this, children should be able to report to someone of trust. Or better still, there are points of reporting where children can report. The Cybersecurity Authority, for instance, has an SMS line, and they also have a direct line, 292. You can call to make a report. The Ghana Police Service have a line, 191, and other related emergency lines that you can call. The Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit is a specialized unit of the Ghana Police Service as a point of call to address such matters. The Cybersecurity Authority, again, even has a WhatsApp line that children can also reach out on. We also have other websites such as the www.psa.gov.gh/report. And so these are mechanisms in place to encourage reporting, because that is when, once it comes to the authority's attention, there's a swift action to address the situation. And one of the remedial action is the removal of the unhealthy content. Right. Because children are children, and they grow to become different persons, very unique persons. You do not want incidents such as this in the virtual space to falsely represent who the child is, which is why the joint operation is helpful, because they would ensure that the content is removed, and then based on their investigation and all that they see, they would address it. But beyond that, also, children should also identify other people around them that they trust, that they can report these kinds of things. It's not healthy for any child, and they must report. They must have the confidence that the systems are there to help them, protect them, remove those illegal content, and make sure that they are able to grow into responsible adults. So yes, there are systems in place. Now, the other thing also is that another system we have put in place is the legal framework. We have the National Cybersecurity Authority 2020, the Cybersecurity Act of 2020, Act 1038, which of course established the Cybersecurity Authority. So that act has sufficient provisions intended to protect children from this kind of behavior. Right.
Madam, we are grateful for your time this evening. It certainly is a conversation that we are hoping that some concrete action is taken on. Thank you so much. Hilda Mensah Esquire is a legal practitioner, child protection specialist, joining us on this conversation. This is 3FM 92.7. Stay with us. We have the latest in the world of business for you right after this break.
Hot edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also coming up tonight, Agribusiness Chamber urges government to suspend fertilizer import duties and secure emergency supplies as Hormuz crisis threatens Ghana's food production. This story and others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. The Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana is calling on government to urgently suspend fertilizer import duties and secure emergency fertilizer supplies from alternative producers, warning that disruptions to global supply caused by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz could threaten Ghana's food production this planting season. There is more in the following 3 Business News Desk report. The Chamber explains that the Strait of Hormuz accounts for a significant share of global fertilizer-related commodities, including about 31% of the world's urea, 44% of sulfur, 18% of ammonia, and 15% of processed phosphates. According to the Chamber, these disruptions are particularly concerning for Ghana because the country produces no primary fertilizer inputs domestically and relies entirely on imports. Data from the Chamber indicates that Ghana imported more than 554,000 metric tons of fertilizer in 2024 alone. It warns that rising global prices and supply shortages could significantly increase input costs for farmers just as the country approaches its peak fertilizer procurement period in April and May. The Chamber also cautions that Ghana entered the crisis with existing vulnerabilities, including high food prices, lower crop yields due to recent drought conditions, and national food insecurity levels already estimated at more than 38%. To cushion the impact, the Chamber is urging government to implement emergency measures, including the suspension of fertilizer import tariffs, urgent procurement from Morocco's OCP group, financial support for fertilizer importers and farmers, and the establishment of a national fertilizer strategic reserve. The Chamber further called on farmers across the country to continue planting despite the uncertainty, while adopting strategies such as micro-dosing fertilizer and intercropping with legumes to maintain yields with lower input use. It also stressed the need for Ghana to accelerate long-delayed plans to build domestic fertilizer production capacity in order to reduce future dependence on global supply chains. And that was a 3 Business News Desk report on the Agribusiness Chamber urging government to suspend fertilizer import duties and secure emergency supplies as Hormuz crisis threatens Ghana's food production. Meanwhile, disruptions to air traffic across the Middle East due to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran could begin to weigh on the Ghanaian cedi as delays in gold shipments threaten one of the country's most important sources of foreign exchange. And that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Our Sports News is next with Ore Kwampofu. Please stay.
To the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Oreku Ampofo. Let's start off from the camp of the Black Stars because former captain Andre Ayew has expressed his excitement after scoring his first league goal since March of 2025. The forward scored in NAC Brothers' 3-3 draw with Feyenoord, ending an 18-game goal drought in the process. Despite his best efforts since joining the club in January, NAC Brother are still 17th in the standings with 23 points after 26 games, battling for survival in the Dutch top flight. Here's Andre Ayew after his goal over the weekend.
To score goals when you're offensive or an offensive player, but sometimes you have to be patient, calm. I knew it was going to come after when you don't know, but I was very focused on us winning games, and today having this goal, I'm very happy. I hope it's the first of many. But I wish it would have given us 3 points instead of 1. Yeah, it's true. It was a great cross from Lewis for me to put this ball at the back of the net. But mixed feelings a bit because I wish this would have given us 3 points or maybe get another goal. The whole team in the second half because we had few situations that we could have scored. But I think it's a fair point today for both teams. Everybody could have won, everybody could have lost, so it's a fair point, and we need to continue like this because we have a very big game coming on Sunday.
Well, that was Andre Ayew speaking after his first goal for NAC Brother. Elsewhere, the president of the Confederations of African Football, President Dr. Patrice Motsepe, has announced a $2 million increment in the prize money for the winner of the CAF Champions League, and then a further $2 million increment for the winner of the CAF Confederation Cup. The winner of the CAF Champions League will now receive $6 million, a 50% increase, while the victor of the CAF Confederation Cup will receive $4 million, a 100% increment. Finally, before we go, Manchester City midfielder Rodri has been fined £80,000 and given a warning over his conduct for comments he made to the media following his side's 2-2 Premier League draw at Tottenham Hotspur, the Football Association said on Monday. The 29-year-old Spanish international was angry after Dominic Solanke's goal was allowed to stand despite the Spurs striker appearing to kick through the back of City centre-back Mark Guehi's leg. The incident was reviewed by the VAR, which ruled no foul had been committed. My name is Ore Kampo for bringing an end to the sports segment and also an end to Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. We'll be back again same time tomorrow.